So now let's take a look at their Week 14 matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals. This is the one AFC game that they added for the season. Yes, this is the one inter-conference game to make it to add for that 17th game of sorts. It's finally here. So let's talk about it. 49ers versus the Bengals in Cincinnati, Week 14. So both teams, they're coming off really bad losses. 49ers, they're coming off a loss to the Seahawks in a game that they should have won in Seattle, 23-30. And their asses got swept in the season series again, proving once again that Russell Wilson still owns their asses even when the Seahawks themselves suck. Absolutely suck. So this is pretty much a self-inflicted and very, very terrible loss by San Francisco. Meanwhile, for the Bengals, they nearly came back in a Week 13 matchup against the LA Chargers in Justin Herbert, but unfortunately for them, some miscues and a finger injury by Joe Burrow ended up having them smoked by Herbert and the Chargers 41-22. And you can't really discount that as a blowout. But you gotta consider the circumstances that the Bengals were in with the Joe Burrow injury. So either way, this is a critical game for both teams to keep their playoffs alive, especially for the 49ers because they're coming off honestly the worst of the loss of the two teams. So first, let's take a look at the Bengals season so far. The Bengals currently sit at 7-5. They hold the 6th seed in the AFC wildcard picture. They actually still have a chance to take over the Baltimore Ravens in the AFC North, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So the Bengals, they're in their second year with Joe Burrow. They're also have their first year 5th overall pick, Jamar Chase, and he's having a pretty good year so far. And I think this is their second or third year, second or third year with their head coach Zach Taylor. Either way, they had a hot start to their season, starting 3-2 on the heels of a breakout stretch by rookie Jamar Chase. But they also had a 3-game slump after that. That was culminated by a big blowout loss to the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore in Week 9. And during that chase, I guess I can't pun, but defenses managed to limit Jamar Chase and exposing a pretty still weak offensive line and getting after Joe Burrow. And heading into their bye week, there were things that they had to fix. They also had to get healthy. After the bye, they won 2 of their last 3 on the backs of their running back Joe Burrow, and they're getting solid play from their defense, especially the defensive line. But let's remember they were playing a very beat up Raiders team, both physically and emotionally, and a washed up Big Ben Roethlisberger and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's face it, who by the way also got similarly beat in the manner that the Bengals beat them this past Thursday by the Vikings, regardless of the box score. However, the Bengals most recently, like I said, they lost to the Chargers in Week 13, 41-22. This was a game that saw them give up 3 touchdowns to Justin Herbert, and they gave up a fumble recovery touchdown that was committed by Joe Mixon. It also saw Joe Burrow suffer a finger injury in the second quarter that pretty much affected him for much of the game. The Bengals could have taken him out of the game, but I guess Burrow really wanted to play through that injury to see how bad it was going to be. So despite the loss, the Bengals are not completely out of it. I guess also because, the rest of the AFC is, just like the NFC, it's kind of so-so. It's kind of weak in its own right. They currently hold the 6th seed. I'm not sure who holds the 7th seed in the AFC. I think it's the Colts right now, but I'm not sure. But whoever's on the outside looking in, it's kind of like a dogfight of who wants the back door into the playoffs. But either way, for the Bengals, they have a bit of a tough stretch that began last week, and it's going to continue going forward. That includes the 49ers. For the Bengals, they're just trying to clinch a playoff spot for the first time since 2015, where they won the AFC North with Andy Dalton and, yes, Marvin Lewis. And we all remember that wild card game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. That was just weird. That was very weird. But, however, I think the Bengals want more than just a wild card spot. They notice, if you've noticed, and if they notice too, the Ravens have been free falling as of late, especially on offense, and they've also lost corner Marlon Humphrey for the season, and their defense continues to free fall too. So if the Ravens continue to free fall, and they have a tough schedule in their own right with the Packers and the Rams in their next 2 of 3 games, and they also have to face the Bengals and Steelers again. The Bengals, you can't count them out in the AFC North title race. And it's pretty much become a two-way race at this point. The Browns and the Steelers are pretty much done. They're pretty much out of it. The Browns are too banged up. The Steelers just got waxed by the Minnesota Vikings on Thursday night. And Ben is likely going to retire after the season. But it's pretty much a two-way race. And they have one more matchup in Week 16 between each other. So the Bengals still have a chance to reinsert themselves into AFC North title contention if the Ravens keep collapsing. But, the Bengals still have their work cut out for them. Aside from the Niners this week and the Ravens in Week 16, they still have to face the Broncos, the Chiefs, and the Browns the rest of the way. So it's not exactly an easy stretch for this Bengals team that wants to inspire some confidence for Joe Burrow and company. Meanwhile, for the 49ers, they currently sit at 6-6. They recently had their 3-game winning streak snapped by the now 4-8 Seattle Seahawks in Week 13, 30-23, and they also were beat at their own game of ball control, ground game, time controlling, that kind of offense that Kyle Shanahan has been trying to institute in the last couple of weeks. They were beat at their own game by Pete Carroll and the Hawks in Week 13. The Seahawks defense pretty much clogged Elijah Mitchell for much of the game, and that forced Kyle Shanahan's hand to have Jimmy G throw it more. And, well, that went as well as you expect. He had some nice throws to George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk. He was still pretty much Jimmy garbage fail for much of the game. High kneecapping throws and giving the Christmas cheer, the Christmas spirit to Bobby Wagner and Quandre Diggs of the Seahawks defense in the form of 2 interception gifts. Yes, 2 interception gifts. The Niners secondary was especially made very poor, but they also made the Seahawks offense look like gods. They made Russell Wilson look like he returned to form. They made him look like as if he recaptured the magic from the previous weeks before the finger injury in Week 5. The Niners are kind of coming in banged up into this matchup. They're not sure if they'll have Elijah Mitchell, who's in concussion protocol. They're likely not going to have Emmanuel Mosley with an ankle injury, but at least they're hoping to have Deebo Samuel and Fred Warner come back for this game after they were out for the Seattle game in Week 13. In regards to the playoff race, if you're really delusional, the Niners, they're 6-6. They're the 6th seed in the NFC playoff picture. Actually the 7th seed. Sorry, they were the 6th seed, but since they lost to the Seahawks, they gave that up to the nameless Washington football team after they beat the Raiders that same week. So the Niners pretty much have to fight off a bunch of bottom barrel teams at this point, and hope that Washington gets feasted on by the rest of the NFC East. But in regards to the rest of the season, their schedule is not as daunting as the Bengals, but after losing to Seattle in a pretty much winnable game, The Niners pretty much have no more margin for error if they want to backdoor into the playoffs, only to get crushed in the first round by the Packers or the Bucks and win the most valuable prize in all of football and all of sports entertainment. The Nickelodeon Most Valuable Player Award that's currently held by one Mitchell Trubisky. Yes. But anyway, so the Niners, this is no easy stretch for them either. Even on paper, it says it is. They still got to face the Bengals, the Falcons, the Titans, the Texans, and the Rams. So never sleep on anyone in this league. So some keys to victory for both teams. For the Bengals, you got to get up front and pressure Jimmy G and turn him into Jimmy Garbage Fail. One way to do that is for defensive ends Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard. Whoever's lining up opposite the right guard, Tom Compton. Tom Compton is a very terrible right guard or right tackle, whatever he plays on the right side of the line. But the right side of the offensive line for the 49ers is very weak. And the Seahawks defense, for as terrible as they are, they exposed it big time on Sunday. They got to him pretty much all day, and they even attacked him and forced Jimmy G to take a wide open safety. So whether it's Hendrickson or Hubbard lining up opposite Compton, they can expose him for the total fraud that Tom Compton is and have a field day feasting on Jimmy G. You got to mix it up with Joe Mixon. However, it's unclear if he's going to play in this game because he's been battling with an illness. He hasn't practiced yet. So if Mixon's going to play, the Zach Taylor's going to have to call up some outside plays instead of just typically running it down the middle like the Niners like to do. So Zach Taylor's got to mix things up with Mixon, or if Mixon doesn't play, find ways to get Samaje Perine involved, and involved in various, not just the typical one-dimensional run it down their throats kind of way. You also got to find Jamar Chase. You got to find ways to get him involved again because, after a stellar first 5 weeks, he's been relatively quiet because I guess defenses have had better reads on him. I think this is the week that, Jamar Chase gets involved even more again because, this is a very bad 49ers secondary that he's going up against, and this is a smash spot for him to figure out how he's going to get involved. Zach Taylor, this is a good spot for him to attack this Niners defense. And then last but not least, you got to monitor Joe Burrow's finger injury because one hit, even if it's small, minor, it could have lasting ramifications on the Bengals' playoff hopes. So even though he's going to play through this swollen finger, they're going to have to check on him every now and then just to see how he's doing in general. Because you don't want to have that injury be severely aggravated to the point where it could cost the Bengals ample amounts of traction in their quest for the playoffs and even the NFC in the AFC North. Just ask Russell Wilson how that went. For the 49ers, the defensive line has to outduel the Bengals' weak offensive line. The big four, Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, Arden Key, DJ Jones. This is an offensive line that can pretty much beat on the ground. And in the last couple of weeks, the Bengals' offensive line still allows a few sacks here and there. So I think that the Niners' defensive line can get to them, get to Joe Burrow, and give him even less time to throw. And that's the key to shutting down this Bengals offense. Jimmy Garoppolo has to minimize his mistakes, plain and simple. He can't be doing the shit that he was doing in Week 13 against Seattle. He's got to stop standing in the pocket as if he's stuck to the ground like glue. And he's also got to stop misreading defenses that, I see George Kittle, but instead my eyes are he actually saw a Bengals corner, and he openly gave them an interception. So for Jimmy G, he has to simply play mistake-free football, but he also has to be aggressive downfield. So anyway, Josh Norman in that secondary, especially Josh Norman, At this point, he's got to have a rechristening or a dive into the Fountain of Youth, because Joe Burrow is likely going to attack his side of the secondary. He knows that Josh Norman can easily get burnt due to him being a washed ass fuck. So at this point, I don't know. I don't know if this secondary can recover, like cover these speedy receivers, especially Jamar Chase. If the ball control, run first offense can't get going early, Kyle Shanahan, you gotta make adjustments very early if you know it's not working. This Bengals team now has a point of attack thanks to Seattle. They can stop the run, so the Niners offense will have to throw. They'll have to throw, and Shanahan, even if you don't trust Jimmy G, you won't have a choice. And you just can't stand pat with your game plan. So overall, it's going to be a desperate game by both teams. The Niners lost a game they should have won. The Bengals just got outplayed by an also inconsistent Chargers team. Both of these losses were kind of hits to their playoff hopes. And it'll continue to look like that if they keep losing more games. So now, this is a must-win game for both teams to keep their standings in place in the playoff race. The Niners win here. They maintain their hold onto the last playoff spot for the Bengals. They get traction onto the AFC North if the Ravens continue to lose. But if you ask me who's going to win this game, I honestly go with the Bengals. Yes, this is a Niners recap episode, and yes, I'm picking the Bengals. I actually haven't given a prediction at all in any of my recap episodes for the 49ers. And, well, we're 14 weeks in, and here we go. Here's your first prediction of the season. I'm going with the Bengals against the 49ers in this one. Even though they got a weak offensive line and Joe Burrow's at less than 100%, they're playing much better. They have a much better and much healthier talent to team than the 49ers, who've been yet again beat up by injuries and a lot of questionable coaching, inconsistent QB play, very bad secondary has plagued them all season long. And I think, again, it'll rear its ugly head yet again. At least for the Niners, they get the benefit of the doubt that this game is not at 10 o'clock or 1 o'clock Eastern time anymore. It got flexed to 4:30 Eastern time, so they get a little bit more time to be adjusted to their own standards, I guess. But still, I think this is a game that the Bengals are gonna win through the air, and this second loss is gonna leave the Niners on the outside looking in because of the Vikings winning on Thursday night. Even if the Niners already won the head-to-head. And, well, we'll see what the Niners do from there the rest of the way. But I just see the Bengals winning this one.